Y'all ready for this? Yes. All right. Welcome everybody to another DoneJS contributors meeting. We are without Chasen this week, so it means I have to resume hosting duties, and I am way out of practice. But we've got a good group. We're going to talk about DoneJS next, which is really exciting. So everybody say hi, Bianca.
Hello, my name's Bianca, calling in from Sayulita, Mexico.
I don't know where that is.
Not either. Or how to spell it, so I don't know how to look it up. Hi, I'm Kevin from outside of Chicago.
Hello, I'm from Matthew. I'm from Kentucky.
Hello, I'm Chicago from Justin. I like that, Matthew. I'm sorry, I stole it.
Did I say it that way?
Said I'm from Matthew, yeah.
Oh,
sorry. So let's do our statuses. I'll go first. I don't even know what I worked on this week. I do know I worked on Bitballs last night for a long time, finishing the rewrite to 3.0, Canvas 3.0 and DoneJS 1.0. It is now working and published. There's some new features that some of Bitovi's new hires added next week. I found a few minor issues. The other cool thing I did, which I might talk about, is made our diffs a little bit smarter, faster, able to do replacements a little bit smarter. I'll probably talk about that a little bit. And for next week, it's gonna be. I think we're gonna have a really good 3.9 release. Hopefully, it's gonna have a whole bunch of things, which will be amazing. First, there's so many things, it's hard to know which one's the best, but just because I've done a little bit of the work on it, and then Kevin's done a lot, is Can Reflect is going to land, and that is that's going to add a whole bunch of crazy fun things. But basically, it's going to speed up Can Stash. We're going to have slots, which will be really nice. So you can kind of pass, instead of just one template you can pass to a component, you can pass multiple and they can get rearranged. We're going to have React View models. I think those are good. And we'll probably have search in the sidebar. So there's a whole bunch of good things coming in 3.9. So I'm going to work on that next week. Matthew, you want to go next?
yes. I was trying to find the window. I was going to show what I worked on. If I can find it. Too many tabs. I'll just share. So I've been working on incremental rendering. Create a demo app. It looks like this. Fun. To get this to work, it's not using incremental rendering at this time. That's what I'm working on now. But to get the app to work at all, because it uses indie JSON, which is like a streaming format for JSON. I had to get fetch to work on SSR. So now, well, not now, but when I release it, DoneSSR will support fetch along with streaming stuff, which is cool. Anyways, so yeah, working on that. Let's see. Yeah, there's a can zone bug. There's a bunch of underlying things. But anyways, the point is that incremental rendering is coming along pretty well. If I'm going to hook up the application to use the incremental renderer, and if that goes well, then we'll do some like DoneSSR and other server-side rendering. The other libraries like DoneServe will have minor releases. DoneServe will have support for HTTP 2 in that, which is cool. Maybe some other stuff. We'll see. We'll try to make a good release out of it though. And that's all for me.
Awesome. Sweet. Kevin?
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned it, and I've been talking about it for weeks. What I've been focusing on is Can Reflect. We thought we would have a release out this week, and then we decided to deprecate most of the stuff that's in Can types currently, which is like we have functions for telling if something is map-like or list-like or whatever. So we deprecated that stuff and are using Can Reflect for that kind of thing instead, which meant we had to publish a new version of Can types, which meant we had to publish a new version of Can util, which meant we had to publish a new version of everything, literally like every single Can library. So that's what I spent the entire week doing. So next week we should actually have our 3.9 release that has all this awesome stuff in it. So that is it for me.
Awesome. I'm really excited for that. Joel or Bianca, do you guys have anything you want to share for this meeting?
Sure, I can share really quick. Oh, go ahead, Joel.
Well, if yours is quick, go ahead. Mine might be longer.
Let's go with Bianca.
Woohoo! All right. So this is my first official week at Petovi. I worked on getting Can Indie JSON Stream ready for the public consumption. So that will be out pretty soon, including a blog about how to use it.
Awesome. What is Can ND JSON Stream?
Sure. Can Indie JSON Stream is a JavaScript module that helps you consume Indie JSON from like an Indie JSON service. So we can fetch JSON in small chunks, process and render them in parallel. And so we can show users data as we receive it. Also, it's faster because we can also process and render it while we're also fetching. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, just to give people what is like instead of just sending back a JSON list, how we normally do now, or you got your each item. ND JSON stream, instead of sending it like this as the payload, you basically just send each line is its own JSON object, and you send a stream of these where every new line kind of represents a new one. And the fetch API is able to get a stream connection, and ND, like what Bianca said, it's used to handle this kind of data structure streaming. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, it's basically JSON.parse, but for Indie JSON.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome.
So maybe I missed it. Is this being submitted to the website to be in like the next minor version, or?
Yeah, hopefully. Okay. Oh, recurse.
So there's two of them, right? There's the low-level stream one that I think that's what Bianca was just talking about, and there's also a Can Connect one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Can Connect, I think, is what she's going to work on next. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Bianca. Joel?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all that ND-JSON stuff. I think that's going to be really fun. Yeah, so I'll share my desktop. So this is something that I kind of wanted to talk about last meeting, but we ran out of time. And it's my idea for kind of like rewriting BitDocs so that it uses some newer stuff that I don't think really was as viable when BitDocs was first made, or when Document.js was first made, which was like using like the abstract syntax tree and even perhaps like the virtual file format like Vinyl, kind of like how Gulp loads files into memory and then stores in there as objects. And I think that would allow us to do some cool stuff like be a lot faster, because right now you have to wait quite a while when you just change one file to see your changes in BitDocs, because it has to run through everything and make sure nothing else has changed. So if everything was kind of just like sitting in memory and like a kind of like a watcher process that could, you know exactly what changed and like what needs to be updated because of that change. So I was just wondering, is this actually like viable? Like, would this be possible? And then I think this might also tie into like what Justin and I were talking about, which is being able to run BitDocs in the browser, so people can, when they're viewing the documentation website, like live edit the code snippets and see the results of that. Don't know. Justin, do you have any input on this, or?
Well, from a performance perspective, the big issue, I think it's a good idea. The big issue from a performance perspective is that it's still possible to change. Like if you change @parent on something, you're probably having to regenerate every single other page.
Yeah, like the sidebar navigation.
Yeah, because the sidebar navigation can change. So in that circumstance, a diff is actually going to slow things down, but I don't think that that's the most common case. The most common case is you're typing your paragraph, you're working on, you're not really altering the structure or the topology, parent-child relationship of elements. So in those cases, I think a diff could have some benefits, right? And you could probably just do the whole diff on the doc map. And what you'd really want to do is special case, like if the parent, basically if the parent-child relationship, then you have to kick off everything. But as long as no parent-child relationship changed, then no new items were added, new items were removed, no parent-child relationships were changed, then you could just re-render that one page. So yeah, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, and I think having the abstract syntax tree would allow us to be a little smarter about how we are parsing comments. And
yeah, so I tried to do that at some point. The problem was to get a parser that gives you comments and handles all code. Like you pretty much are gonna maybe have to use Babel. And I don't know if Babel gives you comments. It might. I don't know.
I actually don't know that much about what you're talking about regarding Babel. So you're saying you'd have to use.
Well, you need it needs to look at, like, I went down this path, like right as I was starting, or maybe like I even have like a branch of DocumentJS that doesn't work this way, but a lot of people write stuff in ES6. So I was using an Esprima, which does give you there's a flag you can set to say, like, in the abstract syntax tree, leave comments. So you can see comment nodes, if you will. So that was really good. But then Esprima didn't work for ES6. So, and anybody who would wrote ES6, Esprima would just explode at them. Just be like, nope, don't even understand this code.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it's a hard, what you'd really want for something like DocumentJS, and maybe, I don't know, like I feel like this is kind of is like a generic problem for parsers in general, which is how do you handle, like if the parser doesn't understand some syntax, they explode. What you really want for bitdocs would be a syntax, an expression kind of format that's like, it kind of understands some things, but it doesn't freak out if it sees something that it doesn't understand. It can kind of like just be like, all right, I'm gonna ignore this. I'm just looking for like curly braces and parentheses, and I can kind of see where those things are. And I'm just building kind of statements or an AST based off that. And I have comment blocks as well, and that's all it can see. It's not like every like argument, I don't know, like ... Oh my God, my head exploded. You'd want something like that, or you just have to use like Babel, which presumably would have everything people can throw at it. It's just a danger because if like someone's writing code with a special Babel plugin, then bitdocs has to support it. Right? When you stick to just parsing comments, then you don't have this problem.
So, but we could also just kind of roll over any errors that we run into, right? Like, and just say, all right, we're going to fall back to kind of the way the default behavior.
You could, yeah. But then that's presumably the output of what we're doing right now and an AST would be very different. So you'd have to have like both working, and that's going to put a burden. What you really want to do is be like, here's the comment and here's the AST around it. It would get weird if like we made every tag like at function or something. Here's the comment, but then here's an AST or the one line, and you have to then every single tag has to handle both. It gets a little dicey. If you get what I'm putting down.
I think, I mean, at that point, what we already have for BitDocs would kind of just be a reference for like we'd have to basically start from the ground up on this kind of. I don't know if you could really rewrite BitDocs as it currently is to like do this a little bit at a time.
No, I mean the. I don't think so. I think the. You don't need a AST from the bottom, right? Like BitDocs produces. You could just say your AST is literally what BitDocs produces right now, which is, you can think of it as like an array of objects that have a comment for the text of the comment and a code for the one line of code following the comment, and then you could do diffs off of that, right? You don't need like the AST of like a full JavaScript AST, which is huge anyways. You wouldn't, that's gigantic. Like, why do you even need that, right? People can only really document code unless you wanted to start going down the road of like, we're going to auto doc things for you. We can actually like look and see a module just exports a function. We could detect that and automatically make a piece of documentation for it. That's amazing. That's super cool.
So it would inject the comment above the function for you, kind of?
Well, we kind of already do that, but I'm saying like you could not even have a comment.
Oh, so you just not have a comment.
It could just say like, well, we know that it is in this path, so the module's got to be named that. We can see it exports a function with these arguments. So we could just create, just like we do infer things from code now. Once you have a full JavaScript AST and a lot of time on your hands, you could build a lot of interesting documentation from parsing the code, right? But that's a lot of work, right? That wouldn't be easy. There'd be a lot of danger in that. But it would be awesome. It'd be so amazing if less make it easier for people to have less code to actually get documentation produced is a huge win. And then what you should just become is then like Flow or TypeScript, because then if you understand the language well enough to know what the type must be or something, you see like the return is using the plus operator, and it must be two strings, or it must either return a string or number, and you can infer things like that. Then you've basically recreated one of those, a lot of the similar logic that like a TypeScript or Flow is, especially Flow is trying to interpret from just reading JavaScript.
Right. Well, my idea wasn't to make it that advanced, but I imagine one day eventually a tool like that will exist. But yeah, I don't think we need to build that right now, because I think the way BitDocs works right now is pretty nice, that it can kind of work with anything and not break, like you're saying.
Yeah, one option might be to try this project called CanParse that I've been working on, which it does allow you to create your own parsers pretty easily, and you could create a very greedy parser that would be able to find comments, find general blocks of code, but just kind of ignore, things it doesn't understand.
I'll have to check that out, because I kind of want to, like, over a weekend here soon, like, try doing something like this just to see how far you can get.
Yeah, the real problem I think now is that ES6 enables I don't know what you want to call them, but like those inline functions that aren't wrapped with anything.
Oh yeah.
No curly braces around the body. because it's single line kind of statements. Those mess up, make parsing that kind of stuff a little bit harder.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, the thing is, you could apply the diff higher up. It doesn't have to be the bottom. So it's definitely viable and can be done in stages. So cool.
All right, man. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, let's move on to topics. I think there's only one topic, but it's a big one. DoneJS next. What should be next? You want to kick off the discussion, Matthew?
Yeah. Well, I guess really, just we hadn't talked about DoneJS next. I think we did talk about it once or twice, but it's been a little while, so I just thought it was time to talk about it again, just as a refresher. I'm not sure. I didn't even look at this. What we have remaining. If there are any big things that are remaining, or should we try to do a DoneJS 1.0? I guess is my question. Once the current stuff is ready. So like
DoneJS 1.1?
Yeah, is that not what I said? Yeah, assuming 1.1. So yeah, so there is the list of issues. Some of this is some of these are kind of smaller things. But yeah, what other big things are there? Is my question. Oh yeah. I wouldn't look at I was looking at the issue, but yes, okay. So can reflect. It's pretty close. The interface stuff is pretty clse.
Well, we're actually punting on that.
Really?
Well, no. What he's doing is we're going to make. Let me scale that back. Like, we might change the individual behaviors interfaces and make them more class-like, so you can use them with the class. Like, you use them as extending classes or mix-ins to classes. The part of this was also going to be the making these kind of higher order behaviors that can add multiple behaviors if they're not there. We're not gonna do that right now. Instead, we're just gonna focus on the low level interface and the docs. So in some ways, this is actually kind of accurate, but we did shift courses a little bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's that. Slim has come along really well. We're gonna do a first release, but it's probably not ready to be DoneJS level because we want to support everything that DoneJS uses, which is gonna we're gonna do that, but we're not ready for that. So I guess probably do we want to wait for all this stuff to be really done before we do a 1.1? I guess there's nothing that we've really done that's that's 1.1 announceable, I guess.
Yeah, to me it's like, when does the guide change is in some ways like when DoneJS 1.1 lands. And as far as I can see,
but we could do, there's stuff that's not even on here. Like, we could add stream. We don't have streams in the guide. That could be something that we
this kind of streamable apps.
No.
Which kind of streams? Event streams?
Yeah, I'm talking about event streams.
Oh, but those exist, I guess, already. I don't know, but
yeah, I think a big thing that would be DoneJS specific and we'd want in the guides, the PWA stuff, progressive web apps, and offline support and that kind of stuff. That's stuff that a lot of similar projects are really pushing hard, like the Preact CLI. That's like the only thing that they talk about is that they have offline support and they get 100 out of 100 on the Lighthouse score or whatever that thing is. So yeah,
how do they have offline support, or is that not on the data layer? It's just on the.
It's not a data layer, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just service worker pre-cache.
Well, we will make it on the data layer, thanks to this.
So no one's worked on can set revisit yet,
no,
right?
No, this is kind of nils. Yeah, I expect all of this to take 2 or 3 months to really get done, maybe longer.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot there, right?
Okay, so can element is just pretty much there. Maybe we want to do some more stuff with it, but it's pretty close. Templates, obviously, we haven't done. React view model is pretty close, as I understand. View models that only derive from streams. That's interesting. I know remember
I
talking
never
about that
created
one.
an issue for that, but yeah, this is like,
Yeah.
we don't really need, like you could, what I want to be able to investigate is a view model layer that is just streams. Like you have your constructor function you're still creating, but all of the properties on it are defined by streams.
Okay.
It's kind of like it's almost like can define, but it's like, instead of getters and setters and whatnot, you only have streams. That's the only
Could be
thing you're
fun.
allowed to use.
Is there a particular reason for that?
Well, because then it doesn't allow setters, and there's no stateful side effects. And I think
Okay.
streams are a more correct way of writing view models. Harder for people to conceptually grasp and whatnot, but
So we probably need some way to hook into events, DOM events, to get those into the stream somehow.
well, I think what you would do is you would have methods that basically just emit events. I need to write this
Right.
issue up and
Yeah.
kind of talk about the ideas here, but
Well, that's what we're talking about now. Is like what's next, because most of the stuff is either being worked on or has been worked on. That's really the only PWA stuff.
I would say that this is, I mean, for you specific, I mean, also we got to talk about resourcing here, right? So I feel like between you and Manuel, these are kind of your targets to finish for the next version of DoneJS. So like what you would, I would imagine
custom generators. That's part of.
No, not well. No, sorry, this and this.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Right. We really don't have a good 404 solution right now. Like Bitballs does it, but it's not great, and we need to improve that. And progressive web apps, right? And then streamable, and this is kind of really on the DoneJS side of DoneJS. These parts I think are really what you and Manuel I think should focus on. And then we're getting Reflect, which really opens the door up next. My personal preference would be, like, Nils is working on this stuff. It'll land whenever it lands. Like, once we have, I think the way I look at it is like, when any of this stuff is ready, if the Slim Loader is ready to be used in DoneJS, well, then we have a DoneJS 1.0. If streamable apps is ready, then we have DoneJS 1.0. If progressive web apps, like, whenever we're done with one of these, like, our next thing should be to release a new DoneJS. If the guide is, especially if the guide is changing, we should have a new DoneJS release.
Okay.
My preference, well, because we already have Nils on this, it's really then talking about like what Kevin is going to do next. I don't know how y'all feel, but my preference would really be to get this right. I think.
Can you open that one up?
There's nothing there.
Oh.
So I need to. But basically, the ability to trace how values are defined from a text node to all of the derived objects. And this is part of can reflect. As long as can reflect, like you can always say what you're dependent on. I want to have either a nice printout or something where people could say like, hey, this element, what's its deal? What's going on there? And you can you could just trace all the way through all of the computes, all of the values. You could trace. My idea would be.
So, are we talking about like a browser plugin, or are we talking about something?
No, this is part of can reflect, really. Like, I would just love it if I had like something like this, which is like, you know, helper get value foo or something, like, and I looked, and this is just producing like the number one, or for some reason it's just empty or something, but I can still find that text node.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to say like, like maybe it's like maybe there's a can debug. And I could pass it that text node. And well, this is just going to give me its most immediate dependencies, which would be the compute that wraps all of this. But I could then, or even this is can reflect would give me this. Does it get, what does it get, value dependencies?
Yeah, or get key dependencies, depending on
Something like that. Yeah, I think it would be get value, because it would just be a single value in the text node, or something like that. And then this is just going to give you the dependencies for this, just say, oh, it depends on this one compute. But then I could ask that compute, what do you depend on? Well, you depend on this helper and the result of get value, and then this expression kind of depends on foo. So you could like print out and walk through like all of this text node. How is it derived? I think that would be a huge help for people debugging CanJS apps.
Yeah.
Not hard now that we've got the
So it's
reflex.
kind of the way that you use it though is like you kind of use it as a replacement for console.log maybe. Like you're like, can debug.log text node and it does some crazy cool printout.
Yeah, a printout. It could also be visible. Like I think we could make it so can debug just will show up as long as it's included, like here in the corner, and then we could go really deep with this. I don't really know exactly what it looks like, but in terms of these priorities here, yeah, the template stuff, it's really important, but like I'm not, I don't know. The more I think about this, like I just think there's just two ways we do about it. Is like we use JSX and we make our own JSX-y kind of thing. We just release our own hyperscript kind of thing and our own diffing that works a little bit with our observables.
That's what I'm in favor of.
Or we do, oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not going to submit a templating proposal.
But you did.
Huh? No, I didn't. I never submitted.
Or I was going to say
I
the other one
created
was
a
like,
template.
okay, sure, but the other one was going to be more of like an element-based one. Right?
I don't know if the timing is correct to do that. I just think it would be a lot of work, and everyone likes JSX, so
sure, and it's easy.
give
That
up.
work is all done for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, but we might have to like rewrite it a bit so that we can contextualize, like get some context around things a little bit better. We might have to make our own JSX plugin. Someone might have to learn that. I don't know. It's just not worth.
Yeah, maybe.
To me, it's not worth this. Because this is going to help everything, and we long needed something like this. This helps everybody right now. Nobody has to rewrite their app to use that. So I guess that's how I feel about priorities.
Okay.
So I have another thing that's not on this list that I haven't fully fleshed out, but would like to talk about if we have more time. So I think another thing we should look at is continue to try to improve server-side rendering performance. I think that's still a problem that people have. I know, Matthew, you've done a ton of work to improve it recently, but still, like, we're maxing out at 200 requests a second or something like that with an SSR server. So I think there's still room to improve that. We could look at things like potentially caching certain fragments for components that don't change frequently or something, or things like that we could still do to make this easier for people to improve the performance of their SSR.
200 requests per second on a single node isn't actually that bad.
Except that we don't really have a way, we don't have any guidance on how to have more than one node.
What do you, I mean?
So 200 requests per second on a single node, that's 200 requests per second on an app for most people. Just because.
Yeah, you can use, with Node, there's a cluster API that does this. It basically spawns processes.
Yeah, there is, and there's also like third-party things. They're not like they're not extremely easy to set up.
I guess what is different about this than just like scaling any application to multiple servers?
I think maybe what Kevin's saying is we don't have a solution for it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and then.
Oh, you mean like just like saying, hey, here you go.
How would we do it?
Like,
yeah, I mean,
create your own like little server farm of SSR servers sitting
Yeah, I mean,
in front.
I've always been very adamant that DoneServe is not a production web server. Like, it doesn't do security in any way. And to me, DoneSSR is for production, for sure. So DoneSSR has to be fast. One thing is, like, the steel is the problem for speed there. So once we have the slim loader, if we have that in production.
Why is steel the problem?
because like the issue that Kevin referred to was like every time we do a can import, like every time can import executes, which is every single request, it normalizes the module ID provided. So it does normalization every single time. And that's expensive.
Even in production, we're still, that's what Slim Loader is fixing though, right? Is eliminating that.
Well, Slim Loader, yeah. Slim Loader doesn't do any normalization.
Because it writes it all out in normalized form.
Exactly, yeah. There's no dynamic
So Slim Loader would
system.
be, is that the bottleneck? I mean, have you?
That was the what
It was a bottleneck. Yeah.
Huh?
That was a bottleneck.
It was a bottleneck.
Well,
I think it's
Amdahl's law, like which, is it like
so there's a temporary fix to have
10% of
caching.
the, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can know for sure without doing some tests. I think personally, I think that was the biggest problem. I don't think there's any other problem with our SSR. I mean, we do create these DOM nodes. It's like it's never going to be as fast as like concatenating strings together, but I think it's we do more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like I think that at 200 requests a second, that's not too shabby.
So 200 requests per second also was like a completely empty. It was an app with like 2 components.
Where'd you get that number from?
That was what you posted in the Done SSR issue. That was with the I don't know what example app it was. I think it was my like 10 component file deep example.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
just 10 components. It's not a real app. In actual apps we were looking at, it was like 6 requests a second.
I think that was before
Are you measuring response time and just dividing 1 second divided by that? Or are you actually doing throughput?
I was actually doing benchmarking.
He's using that.
Apache Bencher with.
Huh?
Was that after my fix though?
No, that was before your fix.
Yeah, it's way different. You need to test it again.
Yeah, and they did, I think.
Oh, I see why you're bringing this up, because you're going back out there.
I mean, that's not why I'm.
No, that's good though. No, I mean, I was like, why is this? No, I mean, that's good. This is why we do the consulting, open source hybrid, because it's like we don't know how our stuff is getting used. And then, so sure, yeah, I think that's a fine thing.
I think once Slam lands and you can use it in Node and SSR, then I would like to circle back and see what the performance is like.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
But I still think no matter what, even if Slam is like twice as fast, let's just say it is, people are always going to scale beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. So you're more talking about just, do we give them like here's a way to set it up so that like you have, because I guess I don't really want to do that, because there's like so many, it's one of those paths that's like, there's 1.5 billion different ways. I mean, we give people one way, but like, I'm wary of saying like, that's exactly how you should set things up. Because it's like, well, I mean, because what you need is like a load balancer in front. You need to have sticky sessions. So it's like, okay, well, we can make it work if it's cookies so that you're all like, but even then, I guess our stuff doesn't depend on that, because our stuff is making requests at the bottom. So you don't even need it sticky, really. You could actually, I guess I just don't understand. Why don't they just spin up a server and just say like, every request, we're just going every other way. And just put Nginx in front of it and be done.
They did. I mean, that is what they did.
Okay, so did that work? Then they have 400 requests a second, and then or whatever.
I think they should be using clusters as well, because they're not maximizing each computer if they only have one process running.
Yeah, they
can use cluster. It'll spawn a bunch of processes, and it will do the work of like dividing what goes to what process. It's pretty easy to use.
Yeah, no, they did. Their DevOps had a bunch of solutions, but they still are complaining that.
Okay, sure, it needs to be faster. Yeah, I mean, hopefully Slim would do that. And I would just say, like, we just need good profile. It's not something I've actually done in Node world, is spend a lot of time profiling. Has anybody here?
I have.
Okay.
And I have when I
fixed many memory leaks in Node.
In the Node. So I guess, I assume you're just using Chrome's tools to connect to Node? Yeah. Okay, so then never mind. I know how to do it. I just have never actually set it up. I think that's fine. I think that's fine to do like a sprint or so on. I think one sprint would probably have a lot of benefits.
So the other question that I had around this is with can-view target, when it's basically we have a can-view target for the whole page, right? And that when it's hydrating, are those callbacks, are they blocking?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
they are, right? So is it possible to make it not like that, where we could
That's what actually updates the DOM, though.
yeah, so that's what I mean. Is it so in SSR?
Parallelize it or something?
Yeah, in SSR, could we have multiple requests that are hydrating?
They should be. That we
And
do that
yielding to
already.
each other.
That zone should already be not hydrating at once, but zone should be like if you have a request come in, then we're done hydrating until that request comes back, and then there's more hydrating. It should be hydrating with the event IO lifecycle stuff. So it should be,
But
if Node is doing its job, it should be fine.
But doing a render is potentially expensive.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's worth thinking about if you can parallelize.
I mean, what's his face? Matthew worked with him a little bit at Walmart or whatever.
Kevin Decker?
Yeah, I guess you did too, right?
No,
Or you just know him
who you're
from
talking
Chicago or
about. He's
whatever?
the only person I know that worked at Walmart.
Okay. He did, I think, in their server-side rendering thing, they actually do, they did time out the renderer, which is basically what you're asking for, is to like put breaks in there.
Yeah.
So
and
it
he
might
yields or
allow.
whatever. Use generators or something like that.
And he said that it actually improved things, which really surprises me. It doesn't make sense that improves throughput because you have to context switch and do all of this stuff and bring up that memory again that was around that closure. It didn't make sense to me why it was faster. And I actually asked him that. He's like, I don't know why it's faster either. So that confused me.
You could use generators to like if can-view target had a generator version to where you could like break up calling those callbacks. So you didn't.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what I was wondering.
Everybody writes code assuming it's synchronous. I mean, everybody writes code assuming it's synchronous in CanJS. You would almost certainly break something in someone's app if you did it that way, just in this
You
circumstance.
should only assume that your component is synchronous. Should you
No,
really assume
CanJS
that
has a
your
contract
children are
where like
synchronous?
you change data, if you read anything, it should be the next line. As long as you're not inside of a batch, the next line
That's true.
should the DOM should be updated.
I think that needs to change.
That's why we did the async mode. I mean, we did put async in there.
No, I know.
Would enable that. We could explore that again, turning that on by default, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't think there should between components there should be no assumption of anything. Like if you pass data to a component, you should expect to immediately get an event back. I mean, you know what I mean? Like events are supposed to be asynchronous, potentially asynchronous. That's what we're talking about is events.
Yeah, I would say. I guess what I would say is like everything right now is just speculation. I think that without good data, I think the answer is just we need a big production app, that uses it. We probably might have one within Bitovi, and just like, or we can just take one and put it in SSR, and then just do some profiling on that, and then fix it. And you'd be surprised by how like a week or two on that drop performance, 25%, something like that. And then hopefully people are happy, but people are never going to be happy.
Sure. Yeah. That's why I was just saying maybe we should spend a little more time on it and see. And the other thing I kind of mentioned is would it be possible to cache certain components or certain fragments? So one thing we found is like that with the app that I'm talking about, their nav was taking like 60% of the time to render rendering their nav was like 60% of the time rendering their app. And the nav like almost never changes, but they need it for SEO. So is it like, would it be possible for us to provide some option to cache that?
I think you could do that. You can create a component that caches stuff, right? Because I mean, remember, it is a single context. You have global scope to mess with. So you could create a component that like renders its children and then just always reuses the same fragment whenever it's called.
It might get weird reusing the same fragment. You'd still want different fragments for different renders, but yeah, there's probably something. Just serialize the inner HTML, and then you just set inner HTML to whatever it was, and not really render your template. That would be way faster than going into Stash. But if it's spending 60% of its time doing that, there's probably, my guess is that what we should try to do is, instead of giving, to me, there really should be two loopholes, like, to get out. There should be like, we should improve the performance of Stash and whatnot, and just keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Make that a super fast. The caching of individual parts, like, I just feel like the higher order solution is the right one then, which is just like, I don't know, maybe we can make that work too. But then I'm more attracted then to like just saying, hey, you want multiple servers? Hey, the best way of doubling performance? Spend an extra $10 a month on another server. Now you've got twice as many renders. You know what I mean? Like, well, servers are so cheap now, right? Like a small EC2 server, just get like, and this is a hyper parallel problem. So you can get like a million cheapy servers. You could probably do this with Amazon's, what's it called? Because just in and out, right?
I don't know. I think what you're experiencing is that you tested this before the bug fix, and the bug fix dramatically improves. Because what was happening
was because of the bug. Because
they were using Done Component.
Yeah.
They were using Done Component, which is a plugin. So every plugin, when you normalize it, is double the cost, because you have to normalize both parts of the plugin.
Oh, is that why components were so much slower? I didn't realize that at the time. Okay, yeah, because that's what it was, right? Their nav was all just dummy components that were rendering just HTML, and the nestedness of them, it was like 20 levels deep of components, and like you said, each one is rendering twice. There is normalizing twice.
Yeah, and I think we can improve components performance just in general, which would be a good thing. Yeah, I'll hear that.
You're being called.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to talk about?
That's all I had.
All right. Good meeting, everybody. Thanks for coming. And see you next